Hello. Welcome to my video. Long before history was written, when humans still walked as shadows among beasts, one lone hunter made a discovery that would change everything. With hunger in his belly and survival on his mind, he stumbled upon a secret hidden in stone, a sharp edge, a blade born of earth and fire. What began as struggle against nature became the first spark of invention, the moment when mankind learned to shape the world instead of merely endure it. This is the story of that discovery, the story of the first blade. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and full of whispers. Tall pines and oaks pressed together so thickly that the morning sun broke into scattered fragments of gold, spilling across the damp ground in thin, trembling lines. Dew clung to every leaf, and the earth was soft with moss and fallen needles. In this vast wilderness roamed a hunter, alone. His name was not one that would ever be remembered, for he lived in an age before words were carved into wood or painted on stone. Yet his steps, cautious and steady, carried the weight of survival, and his eyes, sharp as the eagle's, were always watching for the flicker of movement that meant food or danger. He had no tribe near him now, no companions with which to share the fire. His people had scattered with the changing of the season, following herds, following rivers, following hunger. But he had stayed behind, driven by instinct, curiosity, or perhaps stubbornness. Alone, he relied only on the strength of his limbs and the cunning of his mind. His tools were crude, a heavy stick hardened by fire, a rock used to pound roots or bones, and the strength of his teeth to tear what flesh he could from his catches. Food was never easy. Rabbits darted too quickly. Deer were wary, their ears twitching at the slightest sound. He sometimes managed to trap fish in shallow pools or strike down a bird with a well-aimed stone. But one evening, after the chase of a weary day, he brought down a boar. The beast had fought, tusks slashing, body thrashing, but with persistence and courage he had driven it into a pit he had dug days before. It died with a furious cry, its body heavy with promise, meat, fat, bone, hide. Yet as he crouched beside it, panting and hungry, frustration burned in him. His teeth could only rip small strips of flesh. His fire would cook what he could manage to tear, but much of the beast's rich body would go to waste. He struck at it with a rock, trying to pound the hide apart, but the skin held stubbornly. His stick bent and splintered when he tried to jab it into the carcass. That night, hunger gnawed even as the smell of meat filled his nostrils. He roasted small bits torn by teeth, but most of the boar lay untouched, defiant in death. The hunter slept beside it, uneasy, his mind turning like the restless wind through the trees. Morning came with gray clouds and the patter of light rain. The hunter crouched again by the carcass. He growled softly, a sound of anger, and struck the boar with his rock. The impact did little but smear blood. Again he struck, and again harder. At last the stone slipped from his hand and clattered against another rock by the pit's edge. A sharp sting cut his palm. He hissed, jerking back. Blood welled from a sudden slice across his skin. He lifted the stone and stared. Where it had broken against the other, a new edge glinted, thin, jagged, unlike the dull curve of before. He touched it cautiously. It bit his finger again. Something shifted inside him, a flicker of thought. The rock had changed. It was dangerous now, sharper than bone, sharper than tooth. Carefully he pressed it against the boar's hide. The edge slid through, tearing the skin with surprising ease. His eyes widened. For the first time the animal yielded. The hunter worked with growing excitement. The stone edge tore meat free in thick, satisfying strips. He no longer needed to gnaw and rip like a beast. His hands worked with control, cutting, separating, shaping. The boar became food, plenty enough to fill his belly for days. The discovery thrilled him, but it was fragile. The sharp stone dulled quickly, the jagged edges crumbling after repeated cuts. He needed more. He searched along the riverbed, testing stone after stone, striking them together, discarding those that shattered uselessly. Some cracked into awkward lumps. Others made splinters too small to hold. But sometimes, with a careful strike, he produced slivers that gleamed with deadly thinness. He began to learn the motion, the angle of the blow, the kind of stone that split cleanly. Flint, dark and glassy, worked best. He collected these, testing them, keeping those with edges that bit deepest. His hands grew cut and scarred, but he did not mind. Each scar was a lesson, and each shard was a step forward. The hunter experimented, tying stones to sticks with strips of sinew. Sometimes they slipped loose, sometimes they held. A stone lashed to a branch could stab deeper than wood alone. Another, fitted into a groove, made a tool for scraping hides. He felt the world change in his hands, felt himself changing with it. At night, by his fire, he turned the stones in his fingers, studying the sharpness, imagining new uses. He began to see not just the shapes before him but the shapes hidden inside, waiting to be freed with the right strike. The forest was full of food, yet also full of barriers. Now he had a key. One evening wolves came, drawn by the scent of the boar's remains. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, their growls deep and hungry. The hunter stood by his fire, clutching a stone blade. Fear shivered through him, but when the first wolf lunged, he slashed. The sharp edge cut deep into its muzzle. The beast yelped and fell back, blood dripping from its wound. The others snarled but kept their distance. Fire and blade together guarded him until dawn. When morning light came, he realized something profound. With stone sharpened by his own hand, he was not just prey among greater beasts. He could wound them, perhaps even kill them. Power pulsed in his chest. The forest seemed less vast, less invincible. Hunger, too, became less of a tyrant. The hunter learned to butcher swiftly, to carry strips of meat instead of whole carcasses. He roasted them, smoked them, stored them in woven grasses. The new tool gave him freedom, allowed him to travel lighter, hunt farther. Each success reinforced the strange new path his mind was taking. The path of shaping the world rather than only enduring it. Days turned into weeks. The hunter roamed new valleys, carrying his sharpened stones. He watched rivers cut deep channels in the earth and thought of his own cutting tool. He saw hawks strike with talons and thought of his blade's bite. Everywhere he looked, patterns echoed. Nature's sharpness, nature's tearing, mirrored now in his own invention. One evening, as the sun sank red behind the hills, he sat by his fire and turned the first shard, the one that had sliced his palm. It was worn now, its edge dulled, but he kept it close. In his heart, he knew it was more than a stone. It was a beginning. It had opened a door in his mind, a door that would never close. He imagined others of his people seeing what he had discovered. Perhaps they would learn as he had, perhaps they would take his stones and make their own. Perhaps one day they would all wield edges sharper than teeth, stronger than claws. He could not know, but he felt the weight of the thought. The hunter's life did not suddenly become easy. He still knew hunger, still knew fear. Storms drenched his fire, winter winds chilled him, and predators still lurked. But he faced the world differently now. Each time he shaped a stone, each time he cut meat, each time he struck a spark from flint to fire, he moved farther from the helplessness of beasts and closer to something new. This was not only survival, it was creation. He had learned to take what the earth gave and transform it into something it had never given before. The blade was not born of nature alone but of thought, of vision, of a mind reaching beyond instinct. The lone hunter might never have spoken words for it, but what he had discovered was a seed, the seed of invention, of tools, of the endless chain of human progress. In that moment, crouched over the carcass of a boar, with blood on his hands and a jagged shard in his grip, humanity took a first step into its long future. And though his name is forgotten, though his bones long ago turned to dust beneath the soil, the echo of his discovery endures. Every knife, every plow, every engine of the modern world carries within it the memory of that first broken stone and the lone hunter who dared to see not just what was, but what could be.